YouTube, what's going on? What's happening? As always, I am Hado Kid, and today I wanted to give you guys another tier list. So today's tier list is for Gears 5. Previously, I did one for the Gears of War 1 maps, and I thought just because I've been playing Gears 5 recently that I should do one for Gears 5 as well. I know they're skipping a couple of the games, but Gears 5 is freshest in my mind, so I thought I could give the best just breakdown real quick of each of the maps. There's quite a few of them to go through, so I don't want this to be too long of a video, but I just wanted to give you guys just my opinion, what I would rank these maps, and be sure to let me know what you think at the end. Stick around, see if you agree or disagree. Without further ado, let's just get right into the video. All right, first up, All Fathers Arena. I actually really like this one. It has more of a competitive nature to it. I feel it's pretty even as far as the layout. The ability to kind of change the configuration of how the different cover and obstacles are in the map I think that's pretty creative and unique. You got the power weapons like the boom and the sniper. I like that they're consistent. I also like that they're just, again, it's fair game, just however you want to split your team, whether it's the sides or down the middle. I like this map. I don't know if I want to give it an S. It's good. I think I might place it at A for now. No real complaints with it, I would say. I think it's pretty balanced, but I'm gonna drop it at A for now. Next up is Asylum. This is another new one for Gears 5. This one, there's pros and cons, I would say. I like the different levels of the map. So if you push the sniper, for example, you have the higher ground, versus if you push the the boom or the drop shot, you have the lower ground, and there's kind of like just different levels to it, especially with the stairs, and just a lot of decent coverage. It's not too open, but it's not too covered. So I think it's not a bad map per se, and they have a good range of weapons. None of the heavy weapons I'm not a big fan of heavy weapons on the multiplayer maps. I like this one. The only downside obviously is the environmental aspect of it. It kind of has that Tyro Station trains passing aspect of it, which, I mean, it's not like if you look out for the trains, it's not a big deal. But I mean, I don't know if in a lot of these situations it's a lot of people's favorite thing. If anything, you get run over by the trains, it's kind of embarrassing. If I had to put this one again, I don't know if I could put this one at an A. I don't know if I could put it. I think a B should be fair for this, and I might switch these around during this whole thing, because obviously there's quite a few to go, and I might just realize one might be not fall in the same tier as another. But for right now, I'm gonna leave it at a B. Blood Drive. This is a weird one because I remember when they brought Blood Drive back. I think they did it in Gears 4 too. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they brought Blood Drive back, and I feel like it was kind of just overplayed. Like the playlist kept running Blood Drive whenever I was playing, and then people kind of like the nostalgia wore off. But what I'll say is, as a map in general, I like Blood Drive. The bad thing is it does kind of encourage, I don't want to say camping, but like it's more of a series. I feel like it has more of that like sit back and Lancer vibe versus really run up, get done up Nasher vibe. But again, I like the symmetry of the map. I like I always push the sniper, of course. I really personally like this one, but I also don't like it for those reasons of it can be a really, stand back, drawn out Lancer kind of map. I also don't like that they put the Scorcher on it, because the Scorcher is kind of an OP gun in Gears 5. Like the amount of damage it does is just crazy. So I want to put Blood Drive as an S, but I feel like I have to put it at an A for now. This, for what it's worth, is my go-to Horde map. If you ever want to play Horde, whatever difficulty, Blood Drive is a good middle ground kind of one. That's my go-to, especially when you're playing against bosses, because they can't go in the little spawn areas, so you can kind of cheese that out. Just a little tip for you guys. Next, we have Bunker. Bunker is honestly not my favorite map. I'll just say that. When I get it, it's not a big deal, but it's very open, so a lot of times, again, if you're playing against a team, at least in quick play, you're a lot of opportunity just for just straight Lancer and get you down, kind of that same tactic as in Blood Drive, so to speak. This has the Mulcher also, and then the salvo rocket launcher gun. They switch off heavy weapons. like I said, I'm not a fan of the heavy weapon thing. It's just I could do without it in multiplayer, at least in this map. It just seems really cheesy, and I don't know. Again, it's just not my favorite design. Not my favorite weapons on it either. You know, you get the GL and you get the drop shot, but I would probably throw this one. I almost want to say D. I'm gonna say D. I only say that because I feel like there are some that might fall in C territory, and I don't know if I can put this in a C tier. So, more to come. For now, a D. Next up, we got Canals. If y'all watched my last video, go check it out. You already know how I feel about Canals. Again, I love the symmetry. Snipers on both ends. You got the power weapon in the middle. You got the wings, you know, one high up, one low down with the you know, just nades in the middle. It's just a well composed map where a lot of different engagements can happen, a lot of different ways you can approach it with your team. You can even get a lot of good sniper vantage points. This might be one of my favorite Gears maps, and because of that, I'm gonna put it at S. I know a lot of people might not like Canals, but I think there's a reason that it survived through this many Gears games, and honestly, I hope it makes it into the next one. All right, next up is Checkout. Checkout, I want to say, came from Gears 3. That was, I think, the first time they made his appearance, and I do like Checkout. It, of course, has heavy weapons, which is not my favorite thing, but again, I like just the layout of how you can push it. If you got a good team on Checkout, it can be really fun. It can also be very not fun if you're playing against a good team without teammates around you who can help you fight that fight. Not much bad to say about Checkout. The cover is good, but I guess I also don't like the destructible cover aspect of it. You know, there's different boxes and crates you can kind of blow up essentially that take off the cover. And it's an interesting mechanic, but not one that's my favorite when you're trying to have like a serious battle. I like the snipers in it. I like, again, just the layout of it overall, but not one that I would put super high on my list. I'm going to probably put Checkout at a B. Let me know what you guys think. I have a couple of friends who are really fond of Checkout, so they might not agree with this one, but for me, Checkout isn't necessarily A level, and I couldn't put it at S level with Canals. All right, next up is Clock Tower. This is another one that came from Gears 1, and it is another favorite of mine, to be honest. In my last video, I put it at an A, and it's giving me the same vibes. Again, Gears 5, if anything, they just made it look even better. Like graphically, I think it's a really stunning map. If you want to, you know, pay attention to like the graphics aspect of Gears 5, I think they did a really good job just remastering this whole level, making it look really nice without taking away the authentic feel. Again, you got the sniper at the top that you can push, so you really have to push for it. It's not like Canals where you have the equal ones on both sides. Then you got Boom out on the side, or you know, whatever it might be, and just the level of coordination you need to get out there because it is a little more open. I think there's a good balance between open space out there versus kind of cover and, you know, walls and things when you push around the spawn and up top for the snipe. I really like that. And of course, central are the nades. Again, the only downside I can really pick from this one, that I mentioned in the last video, is the ability to kind of spawn camp. You know, if the other team is really pushing you, they have a really good team, and you guys might be struggling, and they push into your spawn, it can be not really fun because there's only really one way to exit the spawn. So overall, though, one of my favorite maps, a great map, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and put this one at an A again. All right, damn. I think this is a Gears 4 map. This map is good too. Thinking about the layout, it is a fairly open map, I'll say. There is really, if you have a sniper, and you just are really good, you know how to position yourself, there's really nowhere you can't see somebody, essentially. But I mean, you got the sniper power weapons, you got the boom and the drop, similar to other weapons. You have nades on both sides, which is nice. You got the retro, which not my favorite weapon to have or have used against me, I should say. I mean, overall, it's a pretty decent map. Again, my only complaint is like it is fairly open, And this is another one where like I just think back to when I played really coordinated teams and like really struggled, because when you hold a point, I'll say there's just, it's really hard to break through if you don't have the right coordination, the right team. So Dam is a cool map. It's not my favorite necessarily, you know, like if you want to look at the water, that looks cool too, but it's not a bad map by any means. This might be one actually that I just put at C. There's nothing fantastic about it, I feel like, but there's also nothing that really just puts it any lower than a C, like in D or F range. So I think I'm gonna leave Dam at C. Next up is District. So District, I like a lot about this map. I think this was one you could play, like this was like one of the first maps you could like, you know, play, I think in the beta as well, if I remember correctly. Visually, a really cool map. Nades on one side. I'll say this one, weapon wise, doesn't really tickle my fancy, I guess you could say. You got the nades, which you know is cool and stuff too, but then you got the torque and the M-bar in the middle that alternates. But this one is especially hard to push for that. I mean, because you really have to coordinate and spend some time, and just because of the nature of the little areas you can pull into, whether you're on your side or the enemy side, it is very Lancer encouraging, I'll call it. There are a lot of quick play games I'll be in where it's just like really like trying to hold this territory. It feels like ranked when it's just, I don't know, it feels like it should be more whatever. But also the Marxas, and I just remember the heavy weapons too. You got the like the buzzkill, I think it is, and the flamethrower. That's negative points for me. I'm not gonna lie, it's a cool map, but it's one of those that can be hit or miss. I don't want to say it's a bad map just because it has heavy weapons and a flamethrower. I don't want to say that at all, but I might put this one at the same level as Dam, just because again it doesn't really stand out to me. There's nothing really making me go like, oh, let's play District, let's really play this map. When I get it, it is what it is. When I don't get it, I'm just hoping it's not a worse map. So for a District, I'm gonna put that at a C. Now we are into Exhibit. Exhibit is actually not a bad map. I like this one. Another one that if you haven't paid attention to the details around and just the graphics are kind of cool. It's just like the little things they have. I almost said exhibits. The exhibits they have in the exhibit are kind of cool. So just check that out next time you're playing. Snipers, when there are snipers laid out, I like that. I like the weapons in the middle because again they switch it up. They put they have the Lancer GL. I'm sorry, they have the drop and they have the hammer. I'm gonna call it the hammer, not the Hammer of Dawn, the smashing hammer. I made a video about it, don't remember the name. They have the hammer, and man, the hammer is, I don't remember what I said in my video, but the hammer is fun. I'm not gonna lie, I hate when people use it. It's OP, that doesn't change, but it's really fun. It makes no sense how it can go through walls, but I use it a lot, so I'm not gonna be the one complaining right now. This one, the environmental aspect of it, see, it's kind of, I died to the lasers a lot, I'll say that. So it's embarrassing, but it kind of happens, you know. For pros, I like the weapons. I like the different areas you can have battles in. I feel like whether you're down low, whether you're in the spawns, whether you're, the only real place I don't like again is on that bridge up top, because you can't really have a serious battle once the lasers start going. Now you're playing Twister and Gears of War, and it's not that fun up there. But this one, it's not a terrible map. And again, I like the snipers, I like the bolt talk, I like the hammers in the middle. Overall, not too much I can complain about other than the lasers. So I'm gonna put this at a B. Again, I'm not too mad when I get this map. If you absolutely hate the laser aspect of it, which I understand, because again, I've probably taken negative points from maps in the past because of the environmental aspect of it, but I think you'll disagree if you hate the lasers, but I just chalk it up to part of the game, no pun intended. So I'm gonna leave it at B. Forge. This one is another Gears 4 comeback, if I'm not mistaken. And you want to talk about environmental? It's actually not super easy to get this kind of kill, but it does happen. You know, this one obviously has the big grill oven furnace in the side. I don't know what you want to call it, but you know, there's a button that you can press up top if you were to push the torque or the sniper. I'm sorry, yes, torque or sniper. And if you're just in that little section where they house the other power weapon in there, you know, you might get scorched. This is an interesting map for me because, again, the environmental aspect of it doesn't happen a lot when I play. Like, if that does happen to you, it's kind of like you just weren't paying attention, because you can get out of there, or just don't push in too far into that little chamber. But this is also another very open map, you know, and I think Gears in that, I think cover based, even when I'm in cover, I feel like I can still just be lanced from various angles that shouldn't be hitting me yet, that bullets shouldn't be hitting me yet. So this one is kind of iffy because, other than really just like that cool little interesting environmental tweak and the weapon up top, this one isn't necessarily my favorite map. I don't think it was in Gears 4 either. It also just, it's another one where it's really hard, I find, to take back a point once a good team takes it. Like, when a good team takes it and they set up shop, it's like, unless it's in the nades, just in the middle, where literally you can get shot by any direction, which again is not, in my opinion, the best design from a objective taking perspective. Yeah, this one, it's cool, but it's not one that I'm really excited to play on. So for that reason, I'm gonna put Scourge. Oh boy, Forge. Is it a C? Is it a D? See, my dilemma is there's an F column in this tier list. And side note, I just noticed I was in big just chatting mode the whole time. So this video is gonna start off a little different than usual. I'm going to revert back to being small Hado, you know, Hado Kid, not Hado big ass kid. I apologize for not seeing that earlier. I just had a whole coffee and we just gonna keep it pushing. As I was saying, D or an F. I don't know what goes in F. I have an idea of 1, maybe 2, but it makes D like bad, but not like that bad. So I think I'm gonna put Forge at D, just because I don't really enjoy Forge as much. I would prefer to play on these two more than I would prefer Forge. So we're gonna leave it there. Foundation. This was I don't enjoy this map. I don't know if it's the openness again of this map or even just the weapons you can choose from, but this is the one where you can push to the side and kind of down into the little area where, you know, they have the boom or the drop shot, and then you have the torque. I think it's always the torque, but whatever, the torque up top. This one, I think it is the openness that I don't enjoy. Again, very like Lancer encouraging from what I can tell. That it always happens to me. Even pushing up in a spot, like if they were at the not the exactly in the spawn, but you know, the little area on the other side of that, the spawn where you can get different where you get the grenades at, when the, like, if an objective is there, like, it's not that hard to just push in there and like wipe a team if you really just kind of coordinate right. But this one, I don't really enjoy this one. The weapons are my favorite. Again, very open, not really much speaking to me. I feel like this is one that people don't mind, but this is one that I am never excited to play on. So for that reason, I'm gonna put this one at a D. If this might be blasphemous if y'all really like Foundation, but I can't recall a lot of matches where I really enjoyed Foundation. If anything, they were either really sweaty or just really not that fun. Gridlock. If you remember, in my last video, I put Gridlock at a B. And that was, I want to reassess it in the scope of Gears 5 and all of these maps, because that is kind of part of a tier list. Like, you have to look at it in relation to the maps around it, not just where it was in a different game. You talk about open, Gridlock might be one of the most open maps there is. You know, it's an OG map, of course. And again, I think a lot of people either love Gridlock because it's just nostalgic, or they can't stand Gridlock because it's been in every Gears game so far and they're just kind of sick of it. It's another one where, again, if you have a bad team, I think it's hard to really win in a match on Gridlock. And getting the power weapons is key, I'll say. Like, holding the sniper tower with a good sniper is part one of success, and if you can manage to get the boom too, like, you pretty much can, in my opinion, run the map. But again, the openness of it doesn't necessarily strike me that fun. It's not fun being on the opposite end of not getting the power weapons, I'll say that. So I put it at a B last time. The question is, does it fit? Do I put it at the same level as Dam and District? I don't think it's an A, for what it's worth. It didn't get better, I'll say, which, you know, considering I'm not a super fan of all the Gears 5 maps, I'm surprised. But it doesn't get better necessarily. What is Gridlock? I think, at least looking at it, putting Gridlock at a B makes sense. I don't know if that's nostalgia again talking to me again, and I did just end up putting it in the same spot. But really, when I look at it, I don't know if I want to put it at a C. You know, I am going to drop it to a C. And I think it's just because, again, for the same reasons, like I don't think it's a D. I know I've put more of the open maps at a D. But I think Gridlock has more to offer than just its openness. Again, they have good weapons, and you really have to have a coordinated push for those weapons. So in that aspect, that's a pro. And I think that bumps it to a C at least, on top of nostalgia. But to put it at a B, I think in relation to, just based on the number of maps and the maps that do kind of offer a little more, I'm going to put Gridlock at a C. Let me know what y'all think about that, because this is, again, an OG Gears map. So some people, Gridlock might be an S. Some people, Gridlock might be an F. I'm putting it right in the middle. Next up is Harbor. I feel like this is a trend. Harbor is open. Again, I'll say that now. Again, you can tell I've been playing the older Gears games since they, when they came out, because the cover-based aspect, it has to be a nice balance of it. So Harbor is one that I don't mind playing on. You got the snipers again, or the torque, which is a nice little trade-off, and then you have the drop shot. Or I can't remember if it's always drop shot or not in the power weapon. Nonetheless, this is one that's okay. I've had very bad matches on this because, again, it's very campy, very Lancer based. And my favorite part about playing on this map is blowing the horn. You know what I mean? I know I'm just being silly, but it's a fun little thing, and I like when they do that in the maps. But this is another one of those where, again, I don't want to just get into a big long Lancer battle if I'm just trying to have a casual match. And this is just one of those where, like, you're not mad that you get it, but you kind of just, I'm ready for the next map when I play on Harbor. Not a whole lot to it. Even like the side weapons, like whether it's like the bolt hawk or like the hammer burst or whatever, again, that's kind of whatever. So for that reason, I'm between a C or a D, and I have to do the same comparison. See, this one though, now we're into, can I put it at the same level as these maps or these maps? And I personally don't know if I would put Harbor at the same level as a Gridlock, Dam, or District. So for that reason, I'm going to place Harbor at a D. It's not my most hated map by any means, but just based on the scale we've established so far, I don't think I would be able to put it higher than a D to sit up here with these maps. Icebound. Oh boy. Ooh, Icebound. So this map is known for its environmental aspect. If you know, if you are walking on the ice and somebody shoots the ice, you will start freezing. And if you stay in there for like 2 seconds, you're basically down, and you're not fast enough to get out of the ice when you're down. So you're probably going to die unless a teammate is just kind of like next to you to pick you up and keep it going. This map has a lot not working for it. A lot of campability, I'll call it. Let's just throw that word out there. A lot of campability. I'm not a super fan of the weapons they have in there. They have the cryo gun as a heavy weapon, where it's like, at least for heavy weapons, you could put something applicable if you're going to put it. Prefer don't have it, but put something better than that. I didn't know if I would have more than one F, but I'm gonna put Icebound at an F. There's really not much about this map that I want to do, like not that I want to like. Like I don't go into a match saying, "Oh, pick Icebound over all of these." If it's between Icebound and like some other maps, then maybe I'll choose this one. But 9 times out of 10, I can skip this map and never play on it again, and I'm cool. No pun intended. So for that reason, we're gonna leave it at the first F of the day. It's gonna be a long video. Lift. This is a pretty open one too, but it's not necessarily one that I really can't stand. It still definitely allows for, you know, just complete Lancer standoffs for sure. There's a sniper on the side, obviously, which I like. There's the power weapon in the middle, which is nice, and it even has like the little shutter, you know, aspect of it, which is cool. I don't think anybody actually uses that. Actually, it's kind of dumb because it's not really something that gets utilized a lot. I think it's interesting, but it's not useful. You can open the shutters on the windows in the middle room with a power weapon and, you know, shoot inside or shoot outside. But if you're on the inside, it's a complete disadvantage. Again, this one is not terrible per se. I feel like there's enough cover on the map to where it might not be walls and buildings necessarily, but there's enough cover to where you can move around even though it is open. And especially with a coordinated push from your team, you can overtake spots or you can hold spots fairly well. So again, Lift isn't not by any means in my top maps of Gears of all time, but when I look at what we're working with right now, I think I would put it at a C. You know, again, it's not D level per se. I wouldn't necessarily throw it up there. It doesn't excite me as much as like a Checkout or an Asylum or you know, Exhibit necessarily, but put it at a C. Again, not something that I hate when it comes up. You can definitely, again, playing against a good team, this is probably true for all maps, but there are some maps especially where if you don't have a good enough team to stack up against another stacked team, that match won't be fun for you. So this is one of those where it's the case, but again, I think they kind of zero themselves out and it puts it at a C. Nexus. This is interesting because it you know, lore wise, it takes us, I think, back underground, you know, with all the emotion and stuff, which is just kind of a cool little, you know, callback to old Gears. It's not like super applicable now, I don't think, in the story, but I like the design. The design is cool. This is one where if I think about pros and cons, pros, it has the Scorcher on it for what it's worth. You know, whether you use it or not, that's just is noteworthy. I'm not going to hold this super against it though. I just want to put that out there. Again, there are certain things that I attribute to not being like my favorite decision to include on a map, but I get it, you got to have that on some maps. I think this is another power weapon heavy map where if you can get the boom, you're in a good spot, or if you can get the torque, I believe it is, you're also doing well. I think it's a good balance as far as like, you know, again, like other maps, you can push either side with a team, and again, your efforts can be coordinated. And I like how you have the grenades on both sides as well, so that you can really start off and coordinate from there and split up the team or push however you want. There's nothing really terrible about this map, to be honest with you. I've had bad matches on this map, but I've also had, you know, good ones. It's just one of those that it depends on the team you have. But I think the level design is fairly straightforward. I'll say nothing terrible about it, nothing great. I want to put this one, I mean, I'm looking between B and C, but again, we have to ask ourselves, is Nexus on the same level? Is it on par with these up here? And it might be. And I feel like I'm gonna put it here for now, just because again, I don't necessarily hate this map per se. There's an interesting trend I see with all of these maps. When I look through these, it's like S and A are like, yeah, these are good. B through F are like, well, these are like not my favorite at all. And then these are like, they're not terrible, but like I don't, you know, get excited getting up out of bed in the morning to play them. It's interesting to look at that versus my Gears 1 map tier list. But I'm gonna put it at a B for now. It might go down to a C based on what else is coming up, but I'm gonna put it at a B for now. I'm pretty sure this is Pahanu, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna do that. The pro of this map is that it is visually stunning. There's a lot going on. It's a cool little Amazon. There is nothing about this map that I enjoy as a player trying to win a game. It's just this actually, I say Gridlock might be my most open. This might be the most open. It's literally just the most open part of an Amazon. I don't like the weapons in it. It's like, it's hard to see. There's this map. I don't want, this video is already gonna be a long one. This map has very little redeeming qualities for me. This is the easiest F I can give, more than Icebound. I love the idea of the setting. I love the design, but no. All right, Training Grounds. Training Grounds was definitely in the beta. So I remember playing this as like this is one of like the first maps, if not, and this is the training you take in if you do that in the game too. This is one that it's okay. There's, I feel like, enough structures throughout the map that give you some decent coverage. You can't just get lancered from across the map, if that makes sense. There's enough in the way. It's still a fairly open map, but there's enough vantage points and structures to where cover is still present. So I wouldn't hold that against it. You got the snipers on one side, which is nice. The power weapons on the other side, I would say, are okay. Like the Lancer GL, you know, that's okay. And I think it's a drop shot. Like, you know, it could be better, but it's cool. You know, they're probably just trying to keep that range aspect in there. You got the nades in the middle, which is again a typical thing. This is one of those maps that has the overkill on it, and that can get annoying, you know, between the overkill and I don't remember if the M bar is on this map. I'm sorry, Enforcer. I think the Enforcer also might be on this map, and those are like two of my least favorite weapons in like Gears of War history. So, you know, I personally count that against it, just because it's those are some of those like cheap weapons. But if you like them, then you know, more power to you. I mean, this doesn't feel like an unfair map in regards to the design of it. Again, it's open with enough coverage. I would put this one, I think this is just a middle of the road map. It's a C. It's not one that I necessarily want to pick, but I wouldn't throw it down in like D territory necessarily. And with a good team and with good power weapon coverage, I think you can really run any match you have with this one. It is I don't know if it's the same size or bigger, but it feels like a bigger map. Like if you have to run, it takes a while to get to where you're gonna get. But it's spread out enough and it's covered enough to where I think this one can land just at a neutral territory. All right, what do we got now? Vasgar. I like Vasgar. I think what I noticed about myself is I like maps with snipers and with equal snipers so that we can have that little standoff. So there's a little bias that may be there. Take that into account if you disagree with some of my decisions. But I like Vasgar because, again, Vasgar gives you the symmetry on both sides and the opportunity to push either down the middle or down the sides. And, you know, you either have the, what's it called? I call it the dinosaur bone gun. You know what I'm talking about. That's a heavy weapon. You either have that or you have the hammer. They're there, and like obviously they're not like the most fair weapons, but there's plenty of opportunity within the map to position yourself not to get killed by them. So you get nades on both sides too. Again, there's enough structures throughout the map that even though it kind of has a fairly open overview, you can still take cover where you need to. I like Vasgar, if you can't tell. And I know a lot of people that don't like Vasgar. If you're one of those people, I'm sorry, because I feel like I hear people, when it comes up out of the three you can pick, people never want to play here. I personally like it. I like the design too. I would have to put Vasgar, maybe a hot take, I would put it at an A. Again, I like a lot about the map. If anything, the only thing I don't like, again, is just some of the weapon choice in the middle, but I don't think that's necessarily going to change the tide of a match. You know, you collaborate right, you can stop people if they have the hammer or the dinosaur bone gun, as I call it. And, you know, you even get like, I think the Lancer GL is even an option in this map, so I'm leaving it at an A. Reclaimed. This one I'm pretty sure stems from Gears 4. Also, this is one that I've had good maps and I've had bad maps, partially because of the openness, I'll say, and the power weapon. Yeah, this is an interesting like vantage point one because I see people all the time who just hop up there, get the power weapon, and start doing really dumb stuff. Man, a lot of these are starting to blend together at some point. Honestly, like it seemed like so similar, but like so middle of the road similar to where like they just kind of they should start neutral, but they all just feel like sea level. Because this one obviously not sea level is in like water. Sea level is in like the letter C. Is that backwards? C. Yeah, C. This is one where again I like that there are snipers there. There's a sniper. I'm sorry, but other than having snipers on this map, like even having the grenades in the middle, like you're so open to everything. There's not really, I mean, if you're in separate parts of the map, it's fine, but this is one that I'm never super excited to play on. And it's a tough one because I can't gauge whether or not the community really rocks with this map or not. Because what I want to do, I wouldn't put Reclaimed on the same level as, let me not know that, as some of these necessarily. I think there are some people who would, but I think because I can't match it up any higher than a C, I really have to put this at a D. This can also be a map that gets just really Lancer heavy. You know, not that I only like running in with shotguns. That's not like all I like to do. But again, there should be a differentiating factor between a map you can have casual or competitive play on and not be like you walk into a quick play and now you're playing people with their snub pistols out, modded controllers lighting you up every second. There should be levels of being able to mitigate that with cover and other stuff. So for that reason, Reclaimed, I'm going to leave it at a D. Regency. Regency is a cool map. It's a nice looking map. I like the dynamic. It kind of has a mansion. Is that what it is? Mansion dynamic where you can play a lot of indoors. It's obviously much bigger than mansion, but you can play a lot indoors or you can take it outside with the power weapon. It actually does have that similarity. So this one, I like Regency a lot. I feel like you can really move around well with just the structures and the cover in place. Again, I like the symmetry of being able to push either side with the nades in the middle. I don't really have a lot of complaints with Regency, really. Again, as in any map, if you struggle with your team, you know, it might be difficult, but I think it's equally a fair map regardless of how you push. You just got to be strategic about it. And I like the weapons. You know, you got the torque and like the boom and drop, and I like how they set it up in this setting. I think it makes sense, and for that reason, I think I can put it at a B. Again, I think there's much more pros than cons. I'm reserving the S and the A tiers for like, you know, like these are some of my favorite maps, so I wouldn't put Regency there, but it's not enough to take away from it to put it any lower than a B, so I'm gonna leave it at a B. River. This one I think is Gears 2. This one goes back. So if you're OG Gears, you recognize this one from Gears 2. This one, I like River 2 because I like, again, there's it's interesting. There's some symmetry, but you still have to push. Like I like the fact that they make you in the beginning of the map decide, you know, there's probably an equidistant path to the sniper or torque, whether you're pushing straight, or the boom, whether you're pushing down low. And really, depending on how the other team is playing, like that can be a critical decision. Because if everybody pushes the boom and they get the torque, and that dude starts picking, or that person, you know, lady, whatever, if that person starts picking you off one by one with the torque or the sniper, like it can be a problem. I think in the past I didn't like River necessarily a whole lot, but like when I take a look at it now after playing through so many Gears games and playing on good teams, bad teams, anywhere in between, I think River is a pretty balanced map, and I don't ever not have fun on River, to be honest. It's not a map that I think you can just like push blindly in and expect to wipe a whole place unless your team might be more stacked than the other. But again, I think it adds that variety where like you can play serious if you want, or you can kind of play more casual. So River, this might be, again, it's probably gonna sound like just nostalgia taking over, but I think there's a lot of positive in River to put it up here with an A tier. I think that's the reason that it came back, and The only con, I have to mention this because it's rare, but it can happen. And if you're sitting on a car, then it might happen to you. There is an environmental aspect that, like, if you're like really in the red and somebody's just shooting at a car, you can't blow up the cars, and that might kill you. Doesn't happen a lot. Very situational. It's worth mentioning because I didn't want to leave it out, but for me, it doesn't take anything away from it. Leaving River at Nay. All right, we are on the home stretch, and next up is Dawn. Dawn is a new one. I think this is even like an after launch one, like one of them they rolled out with the DLC or whatever, like, or not DLC, they just rolled out after the fact. In a weird way, it's really similar to, I don't think I've gotten to it yet, this map here, I think that's the one. It gives me similar vibes between like the open area and the vantage points you can take to overlook that versus like the little side area, which is kind of sheltered. Actually, this one doesn't even have like a really sheltered area, because like even if you're going to pick up the sniper or the torque, like you're still pretty wide open. So again, I appreciate the cover based aspect versus just a whole lot of openness. You know, from a competitive perspective, I think it should be a balance, and it shouldn't only encourage like a Call of Duty style assault rifle showdown, because that slows down the pace and makes it not super fun, especially if you're just trying to play casual. So that's just a casual player's perspective. This one doesn't offer a whole lot for me. You know, I don't mind the power weapons, but in the setting that you can use them, you know, it is like a ranged player's, you know, advantage, I'll say, if you are using the sniper or the torque. But I feel like just between the lancers you can use on the other team or just pushing, you know, in the right way, you still aren't super effective with a ranged weapon. And other than that, there's not a whole lot of redeeming qualities to Dawn. So we're back to C or D territory. So yeah, again, I can't put this one. I actually find myself looking back to Gridlock a lot. Like I'm looking to Gridlock to see, can I measure things to Gridlock or not? Because again, I know I put it at a C, but it is like kind of an easy one to gauge because I've seen it in every Gears. So if I'm comparing this to a Dam or a Gridlock, I honestly have to put it at a D. I just don't think I can stack it up to any of these up here. In my opinion, it just doesn't do the same. So for that reason, I'm leaving it at a D. Afira. This map I feel like kind of came out of nowhere. Does anybody else feel this way? Like, I know it released later, but like, I don't know if this was maybe when the player base dropped off and everybody was just kind of like, oh, here's something. Like, it was like one map every now and then. But Afira kind of just like came and it was like, okay, like it didn't really, I don't know. This one, just so you know, automatically is like it is what it is map. I don't get excited to play on Afira. I don't necessarily hate playing on Afira either. I do often get Lancered a lot on this map. I think it just depends on the positioning and kind of, again, if you're playing objective based versus like a kill based mode, there's a big difference in that. But this is a map where I get Lancered a lot, which is not very fun. I'm trying to think of the weapons. I like the sniper and then the power weapons on the other side. Again, the building in the middle makes it nice to where like there's a lot of different ways you can move about the map. So I like that about it. I think this one is pretty neutral because like whatever pros and cons there are, like it's not my favorite map. Like visually, I mean everything's on fire, so whatever. But visually, it's okay. It's not like my favorite. You know, I have it if it's my map, and then after I just really want to go to something else. So I think I'm going to put this one at a C. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's just kind of right there in the middle again. Mercy. This has to be a Gears 3 because this is the one that had the Maria, the Dom and Maria picture Easter egg. If you were OGs and you play Gears 3, you remember you get the little Easter egg and then like the bell would chime and stuff like that. Throwback. This one, I don't mind this one. There are some cons that I'll get to, but you know, again, I alluded to this in the early one, where you know you have like the church area that you can go in and kind of get the grenades and stuff. You can have some fun battles in there. I'll say there's good cover in there. Power weapon location isn't my favorite. Just the fact that you just have like a torque in the middle of the, like not in the middle, but just out in the open, where really like unless a team is wiped, they can always kind of have a lock on you especially if they're at the vantage point to the side where they get to use a stupid heavy weapon and just kind of mow you down. Like that, those are two cons right there. So the power weapon placement is just not my favorite, in the middle of the map almost. And then the heavy weapon inclusion, along with the side weapons too. Like just, I mean, the hammer burst, and like this is one of those maps where it's okay, but like I'll say just because of how open it is to like all of the weapons and such, I find that this just turns into a Lancer fest as well. Where am I gonna put this one? I don't want to put it at a D. I keep going C or D. I didn't expect to do as many C's and D's this tier list, but there really are only like a handful of maps that like really like gravitate to me, I guess I'll say. This one, yeah, I'll say like I don't mind getting this one, but I've had some bad matches on this one, so I'm gonna put this at a D also. Just so you know, F is like by no means I want to play it. Based on this scale, again, like these are the middle area maps, and then D is just like in between C and F. It's not like I hate it, but it's not like it's without fault. So Ritual, this is another one of those maps that I felt like it kind of came out of nowhere. I think this was tied in with the DLC for the Hive Busters. This one is it's okay. You know, it's very, I'll say, one-dimensional from like a level perspective. Like there aren't really many high grounds or low grounds, but I personally don't mind that. You know, I like when there's that complexity in a map, but I don't hate a map for not having it necessarily. So I like that. I like the, you know, boom power weapon, drop power weapon, torque power weapons. I like the opportunity again. Like there's so many, even though it's open, I feel like there's many different ways you can move about the map without being seen, which is actually kind of impressive if I think about it. Like I think this map achieves what Pahanu failed, because again, you still get the same like setting environment, so to speak, but just the structure of the level allows for actual like good battles to happen. You know, this one can turn into a Lancer Fest too, but you know, I think it's compatible. You can fight back. Let's not make it up words. That's probably not a made up word. Anyway, this is a cool map. There's more redeeming qualities, I think, to this one. You know, I think is there a Scorcher on this one? I can't remember if there's a Scorcher. I think there is, so I'm not a super fan of that. But again, the odds of that person getting to you, unless you just don't acknowledge them getting in and running towards you, are not very high to me. So I'm gonna put that at a B. You know, it's a really new map, so like the nostalgia part of me wants to say like, oh well, it's not like that great, but it's actually, you know, I don't have a problem playing on this map, so I think a B is where it'll stay. Spire, this one I know came from Gears 4, because I remember when it first came out. This is an interesting one too, because it has a little bit of what I do and don't like. Elephant in the Room, that has a heavy weapon, you know, whether it's like I think it switches though. I think sometimes it's like the boom, but I know for sure it's like a salvo rocket launcher in there at some point in the little church area down here. So that's not my favorite, because, you know, whatever, but I mean, it is such a big map that doesn't like stop a lot. You know, if you're within range of that, I'll say, then it can be annoying, especially if you're like really trying to push an area and this guy's just kind of blind firing rockets at you. It's annoying. But like if you're spread out, then it's not, I think, gonna really change the tide that much. Of course, you know, I like the dual snipers split off. I like the nades in the middle. I like being able to push through the left or through the right. You know, in the right you have some decent coverage, and you know, just it really depends on how you want to do it. If you do go up the middle of the street, which I don't recommend, like that is kind of a weird spot, but I think it creates a little bit of just like a decision making and like a tension more than like a design flaw, I'll say. So it's like open with purpose versus just like an all open map. So I don't think I can compare it the same as some of the open maps. Spire is, I would say, the cons that are there, like what I've called cons in other maps, I don't think I would hold against this one. And I think there's enough pros, assuming you're not just getting Lancered out of your mind. I think that's the deciding factor. But I wouldn't mind putting this at a B. And it's just because, again, like when I'm comparing it, I think there's enough symmetry and enough like real like just variety you can have in each match that it allows for just a better experience than some of these C tier maps. Next is Tomb. It's another one of those maps that just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. I don't know. It's a darker map for sure. I think it kind of reminds me of Aethera. It's just kind of like gloomy looking, which, you know, whatever. This is one where, I mean, you have the boom on the side, which you can pick up. And I think it switches between the boom and the sniper, which I don't know if there's a common rotation now to think about it, looking at all other ones we covered, but you know, that's okay. And then this is one where I think there's a power weapon at some point. One of the rotations is, I'm sorry, a heavy weapon. One of the rotations is like a mulcher, I think, which is kind of dumb. But this one just kind of feels like middle of the road. I'm kind of getting burnt out on just all the C and D levels looking at them. But again, this one, like, I mean, it has a sniper, so that's, you know, a plus. It has the boom shot. It has like some of the more favorite weapons in it. And it's really, again, just kind of like an average design. It's your typical map design. Like, you know, if you push up top, you have to deal with people up top. You know, if you're... I'll say that the coverage is kind of interesting because, you know, you can definitely like just kind of hide behind cover and then like push a corner real fast if you're like objectively trying to take one of the points on the side, you know, like if you're going down that middle hallway and there's that little area. I don't know how to describe this at all, but overall, this is just an average map to me. I'm gonna throw this one at C. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It just kind of, it gets the job done. All right, two more. Village. Village is, I think, a cool map. Again, it's one of those more one-dimensional maps where it doesn't have like a lot of overlooking areas, which again is totally fine. You got decent power weapons, and then you got like the torque bow, I want to say, in another area. This is one of those that, yeah, like I guess the timing of when the map came out is kind of interesting too, just depending on how you like feel about the game and stuff. But I mean, I think this one is fairly spread out. So you got the torque or the M-bar, I think. So M-bar is not my favorite sniper, but if it's yours, I'll just, you know, allow that to take the place of the long shot. You got the torque and the M-bar, and then you got the boom and the drop shot, I think. So there are a lot of like, I feel like there's a couple of areas where like it's kind of, you're open to visually be seen and shot at, but like you can't go past it. Like if you're like stuck on like a bridge area, or if you're in that middle area and you're like, there's a couple of times you'll try to run through somewhere and you're like, oh, that's blocked off, and that kind of sucks. So overall, again, another just kind of middle of the road map to me. Nothing really stands out. Like the weapons are okay. Nothing like, if I were to, let's just say this, if I were to look at the B list and I were to look at the C list, if I had to think about where I put this map, I personally would put it at C. You know, just because again, it's not like super getting me pumped up to play on. Like I'd rather play on any of these B tier list maps than this one. So I'm gonna leave that one at C. Which brings us to the last one, which is Reactor. This is a weird one. I say weird because like I thought about like, isn't there like an environmental aspect of it, of this map? And like, not really. There's this thing where like if you're running on the little platforms to get to the center, you kind of get burnt, but I don't actually think you can burn faster than you can heal, so it's kind of like pointless. That middle area also isn't my favorite so necessarily, because like you can only get to it from one side, but like it's just kind of a weird, like objectively I hate having to defend that spot. I do like being able to push either side, again, whether you're pushing like a drop or a boom, or you're pushing a torque or a sniper or something like that. I like that variety, you know, and just like the grenades and stuff. I like that it has a lot of good weapons and it has, you know, different paths. But again, I'll say like I guess the environmental part isn't a good or a bad thing. It's just kind of like, I guess I'm questioning why it exists. It can turn into a Lancer Fest also if you're like really trying to defend an objective. Reactor overall it's not like a D or an F by any means, I don't think. When it came out, I didn't really have any like particular liking about it. Like I didn't take a liking to it, but I think I'll put this one back at a C. You know, I guess to end it off, like I think the pros, you know, put it in a good position, but again, like, you know, I don't know if it puts it up here with some of these. Like when I get it, I'll play it, but I don't necessarily really like vote for it if I have to. All right, now it's time for the favorite part, which is let's look over and see if I messed up anywhere. 1S, huh? Interesting. Going through, I think all the F's were right. I think the D's all match the description I gave of like I'd rather not play them. The C's are like I'll play them, but they're not my favorites. The B's are better than the C's for sure. Like each of these, like I don't mind playing on. And that's interesting to say considering this one has freaking trains running through the middle of it. But again, I don't mind this map that much. The question is, I think the big question is, would I move any of the A's to S? Because right now all I have is canals at S. Kind of like I mentioned earlier, if I were to put this in the scope of these maps versus compared to like when I did the Gears 1 maps, just in the grand scheme of these maps, which ones do I move up to S if I were to compare them? For me, it's between, I think, All Father's Arena and Blood Drive. And my reasons are, All Father's Arena, I think, is a good balanced map. And I think that's what they were going for, is that like, I think this is designed for more of an like escalation game mode type, or like strategic placement of the weapons and things like that. So like it appeals to a competitive preference, but also you can do a casual match on it. Again, you can fall into the trap of getting Lancer down and things like that, but I think it offers the best opportunity to really play how you want on this map. And then with Blood Drive, so Blood Drive is just a personal favorite. Again, I like it because I like to play it on Horde. It brings back memories from the old Gears games. I like using the sniper on this map. I don't like that the Scorcher is on this map sometimes. Really, I think just like the different, like, I've had a lot of good matches on Blood Drive, and I think it kind of gives that same idea of like, there's coverage where you need to be, and then if you're down in the middle, you know, there's battles going on down there. I think just for the overall versatility, I would put All Father's Arena at S. That's not something I would typically do, like, cause one, I don't usually move stuff up to S, I don't think, but to even put this here with like canals is weird, cause you know, I guess maybe it's the nostalgia saying, you're saying there's a new map on par with like an old map. Nonetheless, again, I think this map just gives a good opportunity to really check all the boxes, I'll say. Whereas Blood Drive, again, I know people who it can easily turn into just like a not fun match, and I know a lot of people who you know, Blood Drive is not their favorite. So just taking all that into account, I think this is the final list. So let me remember to go to Big Me. Hello. So yeah, let me know what y'all think about this. I'm gonna try to cut this video down so that it's not super long, because these were a lot of maps and I had more to say about it than I thought I would. What's interesting to note is just how many just okay maps there are. And when you look through these, obviously like a good majority of them are older maps, you know. There's a couple that, you know, made it in here for Gears 5 specifically that are noticeable. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, whether you agree, whether you disagree, whether your S column looks different than mine, or whether your F column looks way different than mine. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments below. Leave a like, please, if you could, if you really enjoyed it, of course. Share with your friends. I'm curious what the community thinks about like the Gears 5 maps in general. Are you like an OG and you just really like gravitate to those maps? Are there any of these maps from Gears 5 that you would like to see in Gears 6? Drop it in the comments below, let me know. Subscribe if you haven't, let me know what other kind of videos you want to see. Of course, there's a few other Gears games I haven't made tier lists for the maps. I think that's going to do it for me though, guys. As always, I appreciate the love and support, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.